Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm Andy RC and today I'm checking out the WLtoys V383 Assassin Collective Pitch Quadcopter. Now, the informed of you will know that this is pretty much almost an exact clone of the Curtis Youngblood Stingray. And what makes a collective pitch quadcopter different from a normal quadcopter is a physical thing. And I can actually show you that by just turning this propeller here, and you will notice that all of the propellers turn. And that is because there is just a single motor in this quadcopter. It sits at the back there, and that runs a drive chain at the back and also the front, and then there is a prop shaft underneath as well that goes through a tube, and that drives the front propellers as well. So it needs to be a pretty big motor to do that, and it is a 2218 3000 kV motor, and it also needs a pretty powerful battery as well. So one motor running all four of these propellers. It has got a 2200 milliamp 4-cell battery up the front. So the way that this works is very similar to a helicopter, but not quite. You see, these propellers here, they are more like the tail rotor on a helicopter. So we have got 4 servos here, and those servos are connected to a control rod, and what they do is they move the pitch of the blades up and down, which is essentially what the tail rotor of a helicopter does. And that means that change in pitch, we can either have thrust going that way or that way. But it's not like a helicopter in the conventional way, because a helicopter also changes the angle. But when it comes to the changing of the direction of the aircraft, it then works more like a quadcopter. However, it doesn't change the speed of each one of these because it can't. Look, that's all connected to the same motor, so each one of these can't run at different speeds, but it can run at a slightly different pitch, meaning that it sort of simulates a motor going faster or slower by having more or less pitch. And then it's got a very clever flight controller in the middle to deal with all that. So let's just take a look at what this thing looks like. So it's just got these 2 connections here, and then we have some Velcro on the side as well, and that just lifts up like so. Now, it's a very thin plastic material, so I can see this breaking in a hard crash, which I may do because this isn't my usual sort of thing, but I want to give it a try. So we have got that big motor at the back there, and you can see that it runs this chain, and then we have a pole going all the way through to the other side, and then that comes out here, and that drives the front 2 like that, you see. So if any one of these chains snapped, then I'd be in trouble. Then we have got a huge ESC here that has got some heat shrink around it, so that looks fairly hefty there, and also looks like it may have a built-in back as well. And then up here we have got the receiver, so it's using PWM by the looks of it, and then that just bolts onto the flight controller as well. So very tiny flight controller and receiver for what this does. And then this looks to be the antenna for the receiver there, and then the battery is all the way up the front. I guess that is to counterbalance the ESC and motor at the other side. And of course we have these 4 servos as well, so there's a lot going on in this, and it's a fairly heavy model as well. So I'm just gonna place the canopy back on the top. So it's using a XT60, which is nice, and we have a balance port on the battery, so I can use my hobby grade charger with it, but it does come with its own charger, and it's one of these little nifty BC4S chargers. So it looks like it does from 2 to 4S, So it looks like it's only outputting at 1 amp. So that's going to take some time to charge the battery, and you'll also get given this power supply as well, which looks fairly cheap. What does it say on here? So it says output is 2 amps, actually at 12 volt, so that is going to be fine. And then lastly, we have the transmitter. So actually not a lot of stuff with this, so you could stick a camera on there and do FPV, but really this is a line of sight model for doing crazy tricks. So this is a WLtoys transmitter, and I really like these transmitters because you can see it's mode 1 here, but I can just move this lever here and then it becomes mode 2. Why don't more transmitters have that? And then here we have got the idle up. Now that is going to be when we are in 3D mode, and this is the throttle hold, so that just cuts the throttle basically. And then down here we have some functions as well. So we have mode transition. So what this button does is if you are in mode 1 and you press this button for a couple of seconds, that will switch to mode 3, I believe, and then if you are in mode 2 you can press that button and it switches to mode 4. So then we've got dual rate here, low and high as well. So if you're doing 3D, you're going to want to have that on high. And then we have got the 3D/6G button. So yeah, if you want to buy this thing and just fly it like a normal quadcopter, it's got a 6G mode, and then you have got your full 3D mode and collective pitch mode in there as well. Now this button here, I can't quite get a definitive answer on what it actually does. It's called hover debugging, and I have heard some people say that you press it 3 times, and when you're flying, stick all your trims in the middle, press it, and then the helicopter or quadcopter will hover more stably, like an auto trimming function. But then I've also heard people say that it sort of resets and calibrates the gyro in the air, and I've heard people say as well that it sort of creates the auto hover like an altitude hold. So I really cannot tell you what that one does, but I don't think I want to use it. In the instructions it doesn't really tell you what it does, but it does say that if you want to calibrate the gyros while the quadcopter's on the ground, it's both of the sticks out like that. So, speaking of flying, let's go and do that and see how long before I crash it. Okay, so I have got the battery plugged in. There's no on and off switch on this, so you have to plug the battery and then put the canopy on. I've also put a voltage alarm buzzer on it as well. It's a little thing that attaches to the balance port of the battery because it has no voltage telemetry or buzzer. So, I'm going to start off here in 6G mode. I've got the throttle hold on at the moment, and I'm in the high rate because it's a fairly windy day today. So let's turn off the throttle hold and throttle up and see what happens. So instantly it's pitching forward and it has leveled out. So the rates aren't very strong at all in the self-level mode. So very docile actually in self-level mode. But this thing isn't for self-leveling. So let's bring it in for a landing and let's stick it into 3D mode and then let's see what happens. So it looks like it needs a little bit of trimming just on the rudder, so I'm just going to do that. And it's hovering at about 60% throttle, but you can hear the motors aren't really changing speed, and that is because it uses pitch, you see. So let's go for a roll, get some height on. Oh, it's a very slow roll. So I tend to find that with collective pitch, that it's not as twitchy as, say, your normal quadcopter, and you have to gain a fair amount of height for it to do a roll. So you should get a 5-minute flight time with this guy. So let's stick it in collective pitch mode and see what I can do. So I'm gonna go for a roll and then back on the throttle. So that that rudder is still yawing there. So I need to correct that a bit more, I would say. Which way is it going? Just slightly going to the right. Let's try that again. It's a big model, this. My 3D skills aren't the best. Come this way, please. There we go. So I'm not hearing any vibrations or anything like that from it. Just the vibrations from my hands. It's a huge model to be throwing about this. And my 3D skills aren't great. But you can see here, I think if there were to be a manned quadcopter, a proper one, it would have to have collective pitch and one motor. Because just look how quick it changes direction. There's not a huge amount of power per se, but I guess it's the torque. Very slow rolls, but when you combine that with the collective pitch, then it becomes a little bit faster. I have to say, my nerves aren't off going with this guy. Need to spend more time with it, get more comfortable with it. But when you want it to perform, it can. Just look at that. Instant power when you need it. Great for messing about with, but give yourself a lot of space, because, you know, if you're new to this sort of thing, you're going to need it. See, the rudder is moving when it's inverted slightly, and I am not used to correcting for that. I'm trying my best, folks, but more practice is needed, I think. It's a heap of fun, but it flies completely differently to a quadcopter we know. It's a fast thing. Beeper's not going off yet. Try some more inverted flight, dare I. You see when it's getting inverted there, it's yawing around. So inverted now, but I have to correct for the yaw, but of course I'm not a huge expert in flying 3D, so I'm just sort of letting it do what it wants. I'm trying to make it look controlled, but if I'm honest, 80% luck. And my beeper's going off there, so it's time to land because I set it pretty low. So I'm going to come out of the collective pitch mode and come in for a landing. So there you go, that is my review of the WLtoys V383. My hands are shaking a little bit. It's a lot of fun, but not for the faint-hearted. So as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.